Hi, I'm Matt, and I'm here today to introduce you to a new product that I think you'll really enjoy. It's called model railroading. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm back with another layout update video. It's been quite a while. It's been maybe a year since the last update video, something like that. But you know, fall and winter's rolling around. We're getting back into that model railroading building season, and so I thought it was time to go ahead and do a little bit of a reset, another update video to kind of show you what I've been up to and what I plan on doing from here on out. So I've actually done quite a bit to this room, and we'll talk about that right now. One of the first things I did was I finished out the electrical work in the room. I had a couple of plugs running underneath the layout that I had intended to use to sort of power the layout, but I hadn't actually tied them into the breakers yet in the breaker box. I was concerned about it a little bit because I didn't want to add the model railroad plugs to all the rest of the electrical that was going on in the room, because I didn't want to like overload the system at all, and I certainly didn't want to have like surges because of something on a different plug that was going to affect anything on my layout. Turns out that as I was kind of like fishing around in the ceiling and stuff, I found out that some plugs on just the other side of this wall, which were attached to an old workbench that came with the house, were on their own breaker. So I think the previous owner wanted to plug in his power tools and that kind of thing. So he set up a whole breaker just for those plugs. And the only thing plugged into that now is the home Wi-Fi system. So there's a lot of room there for some more stuff. So I went ahead and tied my plugs for the layout into the plugs on the other side of this wall here for the workbench, and that's all on its own breaker now, which is awesome. The other thing I did was I finished out the lighting in this room. For the most part, there's one spot where I'm going to add a little bit more lighting. But that was something that was kind of plaguing me for a little while as well. I wasn't sure exactly how to do it. I don't know much about lighting. I didn't know much about, lumens or color temperature or that kind of thing. It took just a little bit of fishing around on model railroad hobbyist forums before I felt confident that we could do it this way and it'd be super easy. So what I ended up doing was replacing all the basement lighting is in this kind of drop ceiling stuff. Not only this room, but my wife's office and the family room out there as well. And they're all these T5 shop lights that are kind of like just suspended from the ceiling above this drop ceiling here. So what I did was just replace all the T5 fixtures with LED shop light fixtures instead. What that did was it cut the wattage in half, went from 80 watts per fixture down to 40 watts per fixture, and each individual fixture is much brighter than the T5 fixtures were. So already, by just replacing the basic fixtures in this room and the other rooms, I have cut my wattage amount in half and increased the amount of lighting in the room, which is awesome. But that also gave me the extra overhead I needed to add even more lighting to this room. So now I have twice the amount of lights in this room kind of spread out, over the room. And those lights are even brighter now. So without having to worry about, blowing a breaker or something by adding too many lights to this room, I was able to actually overall decrease the amount of wattage on a breaker, but greatly increase the amount of lighting, if that makes sense. Now I've got quite a bit of light in this room. It's pretty darn bright in here. It's really nice. And I've got it on 2 switches, so I can turn off half the lighting in this room if I'm just working under normal work conditions on my laptop for work, or if I'm just kind of doing some modeling around the room, working on the layout, that kind of thing. And then when I want to go run trains or take video of everything, flip a switch, brings up to full lighting, and we're good to go. So I'm really excited about that. And best part about it was super cheap. I was able to purchase 6 fixtures for $100, which is, it doesn't get much cheaper than that. So in this room, I'm going to have, I think, 8 fixtures at the end of the day. And so, it's like $120 worth of lighting, and you've got an entire room's worth of model railroad lighting available to. That's so awesome. So I got that on Amazon, obviously, because I don't think you can get a deal that good in the stores. The brand is called Sunco. It's got good ratings. I'm not worried about fires or anything at this point with that. Seems like it's been time tested by others, and it seems like a pretty good light all overall. So I'll leave a link to it in the description so you can check it out for yourself. But I like them. I recommend them. I also went with 4000K lighting. So that was another thing that was a little unclear about. 6500K lighting is what they call daylight. It's supposed to be natural sunlight look and feel. To me, it's really cool. It's almost like a green. It's very cool to the point where it's like basically, to me, it looks kind of greenish. It looks like what you would consider. It looks like something out of the Matrix, in my opinion. It's very cool color. In fact, this lighting under here, I don't know if you can see it very well. That's 6500K lighting. It's very kind of bluish green, which I like on the Legos. I think it looks good there. I don't think it looks good here. I don't think it looks natural. On opposite end of the spectrum, there's very warm lighting, like a 2700K. It's called warm white in most places. Some people might think that looks sunny or that kind of thing. To me, it's very yellow. It doesn't look. It kind of looks a little blah, in my opinion. So I went with 4000K. 4000K, in my opinion, gives the best color. I think it looks the most natural when I look at my models on the layout. These are the colors I expect to see. So it's called cool white, although it's more warm than daylight, if that makes sense. But it's not nearly as warm as warm white is. So it just feels like a white light, if that makes sense. So now that I've got the lighting and the electrical done, I went ahead and added a painted backdrop, simple painted backdrop, and a simple gray painted front fascia. And by doing so, I think it really adds a lot to the presentation of the layout. There's like a level of confidence to this now that I don't know, it doesn't look complete, but it certainly looks like I'm doing something. I don't know, I can't explain there's like an intangible feeling to it. It just feels like it's just got a good presentation. So anyone coming in here, looks like, there's a certain level of confidence to displaying your layout, even in its completely unfinished, bare plywood state. No ballasting, no scenery, no nicely painted backdrop. Just by presenting like this, it just feels like you're actually doing something, right? As opposed to like the bare plywood with the screws sticking out and all that kind of stuff. This just feels like, oh, this is going somewhere. So I highly recommend anyone to, as soon as possible, add your backdrop and add your front fascia and get it painted. You'll probably need to come over here and do another coat once you start to do scenery and that kind of thing, and you get drips and all that kind of stuff. But at least in this raw state here, this just makes it look so nice. Now the backdrop itself is a hardboard. It's 1/8 inch hardboard, which I cut it from 4x8 sheets. It's a pretty cheap material. The hardest part about this whole thing was just cutting it lengthwise with a circular saw. Nailed it up with a brad nailer, and then I went back and I painted it this kind of sky blue. Now, there's different ways there's different schools of thought when it comes to the sky for a layout. On my previous layout, I went with a very pale blue, almost a white. And in photographs, it actually turned out looking quite white. It looked like an unfinished room, essentially. It was just too white. I know that there are layouts out there that go with a very light, like Mike Confalone's Allagash Railroad has a very light gray. It almost looks white. It works on his layout. I wasn't so sure if that would work very well for me. So what I went with this was just a little more blue. This is kind of like a sky blue. It's just a very light blue. It looks very good in photographs. And I'll eventually come back with an airbrush and lighten up sort of the bottom part of it so we can kind of get a horizon line. That's a little bit of a ways down the road. But for now, just to be able to photograph against a blue backdrop as opposed to just a simple wall, like very, very important. And now that I have it in place, I can begin my scenery there. So here's the location where I've actually coved, is that the word? I think it's coved. I've curved the layout around the corner of the room. You can do that very easily with hardboard, which is really nice. And was pretty simple to do. Just took a little bit of measuring, but having that curved backdrop means there's no seam there. There's no sort of line where everything kind of comes together at a point. And it just feels like this kind of like goes on a little bit, further than it actually does. So that's one of the great things about hardboard, especially the thin 1/8 inch hardboard, is it bends really easy and it's easy to work with in corners like this. Front fascia is done basically the same way. I do have a couple of spots where the elevation changes, and so I've gone ahead and put that in there. This is pretty simple overall, though. And then the sort of grayish brown is the color that I chose for the walls as well. So this ties in with the rest of the room very nicely. So that's everything I've done to this point. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing in the near future. Well, here we are at Sandpoint. This is going to be the focus of most of my modeling attention in the near future. I want to get this section of the railroad up to a really nice scenic state so that anybody walking in here taking a look at the layout can see this, see it looking nice, and then get an idea of what I want to do with the rest of the layout. But because this is one of the first things you see and a very important part of the layout as well, and also maybe one of the simpler parts of the layout, I wanted to tackle this first. I've almost got all the track in place. There was one track piece that was unfinished up to this point. I needed to get the backdrop in so that I could get a background building built, so that I knew where to place the cars, so that I could figure out how far off the backdrop in order to place that track. That's about ready to go at this point. I do have to finish out this building, add a bunch of super detailed parts, paint it up a completely different color. That's going to be coming up here shortly as well. And then we're going to start talking about scenery. I'm going to start roughing in the scenery and start super detailing the track work, painting the track work, beginning to add ballast. Hopefully I can get to the point where I've got the rough scenery in place and all the ballasting done by the end of this sort of series of videos that I'll be coming out with here in over the next few months. Hopefully by mid-spring we've got all the ballasting in place, we've got most of the scenery in place. We're still working on models and that kind of thing, painting the backdrop, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so pretty exciting. Pretty excited to get going on it. Okay, finally, let's talk about this guy right here, the ESU cab control system. I have had a lot of positive things to say about it in the past. I really like the interface. I think that the interface for this guy is really nice. I think it looks good. I think it is easy to use, especially for beginner model railroaders and people like me for whom DCC is kind of a mystery. My day job, I am a UI UX designer, so that means I design interfaces. I try to make the applications that I create as user-friendly as possible. So I don't want somebody sort of struggling to use my application. I want it to feel natural and intuitive for them to use. And although, there's some things I would have maybe done differently with the interface on this device, I think overall it worked really well. So I was very excited about that. It was really very much a leap forward for DCC operations where, in the past it was a lot of just, you kind of had to understand how to navigate around sort of a weird menu structure in order to kind of find things and do things you want. On this, it was very visual. You could assign keys to things with little pictures of what the thing was, so you knew very easily what it was that you were looking at. It was very easy to select locomotives, and consisting was easy. So that part of it's great. The rest of it was pretty rough. I always had problems keeping my throttle connected with the command station. It would constantly just drop. It would just lose the command station. And when I was looking online, it seemed like there's a lot of good solutions. You would Don't use the Wi-Fi built into the command station. Instead, get a dedicated Wi-Fi router for it. Don't use a Wi-Fi router. Use your home Wi-Fi. It's going to be the most powerful thing in the house anyway. Use that instead. I thought for a while I could fix it. I thought for a while I could make it work. It just seems to have gotten worse. I've updated the firmware and everything, and it just seems to have gotten worse for me. And I don't know if it's just me. I go on the forums. It doesn't seem like anyone else is really having this much of a problem with it. But like, it's to the point where like a lot of times it just won't connect. I want to turn it on, I want to run trains, and it just won't do it. And I can't have that. I can't have a model railroad that I can't run because the darn thing won't connect to the base station. I need something that'll work. I need something that'll work and that'll run and that it won't disconnect. And no DCC system is going to be perfect in that regards, especially when you're talking about wirelessly. Everyone's going to have problems, but this just seems like a lot of problems. So I am ditching ESU and the cab control system. And I'll be moving to Digitrax in their new Evo XD system. So yeah, so that stinks because I really liked a lot of what ESU was offering with the cab control system. It's just, maybe it's just me, maybe I got a bad system, I don't know. But I am excited to get a system in here that's going to work well. I like the new updates to the throttle on the Digitrax system. So, it seems like, although it's not as intuitive as this is to use, it seems like it's going to be good enough, and I'm just going to have to suck it up and learn how to use a DCC system, just like everyone else had to do, right? Anyway, finally, I am moving my blog off of Blogspot and over to Facebook groups, I guess. Yeah. It seems like a lot of people these days Facebook is where to go for this kind of thing, and I'm a big firm believer of going where the crowd is. So the crowd seems to be on Facebook. So if you follow the link now at the bottom of the video here, this link right there, it'll take you to my Facebook page. So go ahead and join up. I'm going to try to post about once a week a little bit of a blog post on there. Of course, Instagram is going to be where you want to find me just to see kind of like update photos throughout the week. I try to post that one. I try to post on that one very regularly when I'm working on my model railroad. So between those two links, yeah, you'll be able to get to a lot of cool stuff about the layout when I'm not making videos. So check those out. And yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you all in another video.